everybody. Today I'm going to be doing some more creative writing things, talking about Chekhov's Gun. But before we start, I have another award to give out. This award goes to the number 38 for seeming like it should be divisible by more numbers than it actually is. Yes, I am wearing my Vanderbilt t-shirt today, because if you didn't know, Vanderbilt just won the College World Series last night against Virginia. Go Doors, anchor down. But enough about history-making collegiate sports, let's get to creative writing. Now when I say creative writing here, I really should just say storytelling, because Chekhov's gun is a tool that can be used in prose, in drama, and sort of reaches its ultimate realization in visual mediums like film and television. Now Chekhov's gun is a device that gets its name from a quote by famous author Anton Chekhov, and his quote is this: "If you say in the first chapter that there is a rifle hanging on the wall, then in the second or third chapter it absolutely must go off. If it's not going to be fired, it shouldn't be hanging there." The idea of Chekhov's gun is born out of that quote, and it makes sense because Chekhov himself was really a master short storyteller. And the short story being a genre which is much more compact by definition and must be much more concise and must manage detail much more effectively than like a full-scale novel, it makes a lot of sense that he would be the writer to come up with this idea. And the idea behind that rifle hanging on the wall, whether you're writing a television episode, or a short story, or a novel, is that you need to be very careful and cautious about how you manage your detail. One of the episodes of my workshop report series, link in the description, is all about detail, and in it I talk about how that is the element of your storytelling that is going to make a world and its characters come to life. One of the things that Chekhov is saying, though, is that your details need to be active if they're truly going to be effective. That they should never be unnecessary, in other words. You need to be careful, though, with how you interpret Chekhov's statement. He's not saying that if you give your fantasy character a special amulet, that it needs to play a role later on the story. What he is saying is that if you don't intend for it to play a special role, that you shouldn't include the special amulet at all. He's advocating not having any inactive details, more than he's advocating that you should make all of your details active. However, what we can do is take advantage of the fact that attention to detail naturally creates a sense of importance around a thing. When the audience sees the gun on the wall, or reads about the gun on the wall, they expect it to go off, and we can play on those expectations to build up tension. Now that you have your special amulet, I can write a story that makes the readers expect it to come into play someplace later down the road. They'll be wondering what exactly it is supposed to mean, because surely, since I paid attention to it, it must mean something. This might start sounding a little familiar. J.K. Rowling in her Harry Potter books was infamous in using Chekhovian guns really well. If you read any one of her books, you'll find little details that will come into play in a way you will never expect in some, maybe not even a chapter in the same story, but in some book later on down the road. Especially if what you're focusing on is something dangerous, the idea behind Chekhov's gun can really create the "I have a bad feeling about this" sense that Star Wars characters get all the time. The second season of the television show Orphan Black just wrapped up, and there were a few examples of Chekhovian guns that I can draw from that show to share with you guys, and don't worry, there won't be any spoilers if you haven't finished the season yet. Towards the end of the 8th episode of the season, the character Rachel sort of short-circuits and goes on a bit of an angry rampage, and nothing quite becomes of her hissy fit by the end of that episode, but a dangerous character has now just been made very angry, and so for the next 2 episodes, everyone watching is going to be expecting something bad to happen from her. And yes, I'll tell you, without really spoiling anything, that over the course of the next 2 episodes, she does some pretty drastic and angry things. I like using television as an example because it's one of those visual mediums that I mentioned earlier. Everyone expects you to be putting out visually evocative details when you're writing a story, but nothing quite sets up a Chekhovian gun quite as well as the camera slowly zooming in on an object that you formerly thought to be innocuous. Returning to Orphan Black, when you see a British character dunking a tea bag into a little cup of hot water, you don't think anything of it. But when the camera begins to zoom in on that tea bag, you might begin to think that there's something off about that. Visual mediums thus open an entirely new array of opportunities for storytellers to play off the expectations of the audience. One more thing about this, if you are going to have something come into play, it's best to try to set it up. You don't just want something to suddenly play a role in your story when it's coming out of the blue. When you're battling the giant troll in Chapter 15, the audience is going to think it's really cheap if that's the very first time that you pull the special amulet out of your bag. So a sort of sub-statement of Chekhov's gun is that if the gun is going to go off in Chapter 3, you better have hung it up in Chapter 1. A thing or object that seems to come out of the blue and save the characters in a tight spot without being set up earlier in the story is known as a deus ex machina, but that's something for another video. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Here's a quick Brothers in Ink update for you. This past week, we just hit a milestone. My LEGO movie review became our first video to surpass 200 views. And Zach's Guardian of the Galaxy trailer review is not that far behind. So thank you guys for your viewership and for helping make that happen. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down at the bottom, and to check out our social media links in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.